All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for
Legend of the Galactic Heroes, episode 102. Oh boy.
Wow.
Yeah, they're going to war with the Empire. Julian is making his move.
Julian, this is a bold move, and yet you seem to have some kind of strategy here because you don't seem to be going with Mercats.
Right, you're leaving Iserlon, but don't seem to be going with the main fleet.
Right. So
okay,
Hyperion is Mercats. I would assume on some level then that Mercats is going to directly engage with another fleet, which means he's probably going...
Wallen,
probably going to Heinessen.
Yeah.
But then if Julian goes somewhere else, is he going to the Empire?
Right.
Side?
Well, and
is he just going in a smaller section of ships?
Right. And what's his objective?
Yeah, what's his overall objective? Because there's only a couple things I think he could do with a smaller group.
But, if he's going for some kind of either subterfuge or...
Big fish.
Yeah, big fish. Then I am very excited about that.
Yeah, I particularly think that he's trying to sneak his way to Fejon.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That would be crazy.
Yes, yeah.
That would be pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, okay. But there's also just a possibility that it's just a basic tactics thing of we send out a bunch of ships.
Sure.
This attracts a lot of attention from the Empire of ships leaving Iserlon.
Yep.
And then, they get, attacked. And Julian's group just attacks the group that attacks them. That's, classic pincer thing. Who knows?
Who knows?
But yeah, we've also got everything on the Empire side of how to respond to the uprisings.
A super fleet. All the admirals, it seems, all put together.
All of them forming.
Yep.
Which is interesting because there's been a lot of talk of the economics of fielding a lot of these ships and stuff. And since starvation is an issue on the Alliance side of things, could we be heading to a bit of an economic collapse on the galactic scale?
Well, we only have 9 episodes left in this show, so how much war could actually happen in that amount of time?
Right.
Hopefully not much.
Probably not as much.
Yeah.
But then that might be the thing that ends it soon, is that it's like,
sure. Yeah.
We made our convoy, or we made our expedition to Iserlon. Go back in your cage, Iserlon Republic. No, we're already out here. The fleet's doing stuff.
Okay, and now we crush you. Yeah.
Shit. Yeah, but maybe they won't. Maybe they won't have the resources for a long engagement. So. Otherwise, they'll have to let all of the Alliance planets starve.
Right. Well, how do I put this? It will take all Julian can do in order to make sure that it's not a very short conflict.
By running a lot.
Yeah. Among other things.
Yeah. So, y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. All right, everyone. Now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below. Then come back here for the discussion. Julian, Mercats, everyone in the Alliance, the Iserlon Republic. You kicked Reinhard in the shin.
That's right.
And he got a fever because of it.
Yeah.
Holy shit, you did so much that worked so well here.
I loved, this was another situation where I absolutely loved the tactics that went into the battle. Because you have the one guy who's basically, I forget his name, but
Wasengile or something.
Right. The guy on the Empire side of the Iserlon Fortress.
Not Wallen.
Right, not Wallen, who is obviously cocky, brash, and he's itching for that victory. And the thing is that he didn't even recognize really where his mistake was.
No.
Pursuing to the Iserlon Fortress, that's cool, because it's, it's the, hey, you came our way, we're going to make sure that you can't do anything in the corridor and just keep you blocked here. Cool.
Right.
But
that could have been a mistake.
But sure. Yeah, because there could have been traps and all sorts of things, right?
Yeah.
Because he was not just wanting to block them off, but to go and beat them while chasing them.
Yeah.
But then, two, you went into the range of Thor's hammer in the first place. Knowing to retreat once you're in range, cool, that's great.
Right.
But, you should have stopped things before then.
Right. You wanted a melee, but then when they turned around and put a fierce attack up there, you should have kept charging. That was his first mistake, in my opinion. Because I think following them back was not as big of a deal because he understood the Citadel strategy that had happened before.
Yeah.
But the idea of when they turned and abruptly fired at them when they were still outside of the Thor's hammer's range, and then they stopped to engage them, that was their loss of momentum. They should have
Right.
taken the hit of,
We're gonna get a second volley on us for free or something.
They're gonna get
Right, yeah.
But we're gonna get into melee with them, and now Thor's hammer can't do shit.
Right. They can't get away from us
and
either.
we can board Iserlon with at
Sure.
least maybe 100 ships.
Or at the very least, now because we have a numbers advantage, right? Even if we lost a
we'll
tiny
trade
bit
with
of
them.
Yeah, we can just trade with them, right?
Yep.
And that's great because if we, even if their fleet were to go to 0 and Julian's fleet also went to 0, that is an overwhelming victory for Reinhard, right? Because those Imperial ships can be replenished, other people
Theirs
can come in.
can't, really.
But Iserlon, no.
Yeah,
those ships are a permanent loss.
Yeah, I'm guessing the Iserlon has the capacity to produce some ships over the years.
Yeah.
But not really in any kind of serious
no
scale.
fleet capacity.
And probably not big ships.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a huge fuck up. The idea that he also was playing it safe means that it's, who's to say if the thing of not going into melee was a real mistake. But then the idea that Meckling was like, hey, that was my job originally.
Oh, yeah.
If I was there, I would have noticed that this fleet here, that's Mercats,
Yep.
I would have clearly been able
Yep.
to spot them. In fact, based on the data that we received, he did in fact spot them, but he did not communicate that effectively to Wallen's fleet before it was too late.
And that's something that I really appreciate was brought up as a flub on behalf of one of the admirals there, because the idea of hiding a fleet, even if it's like a smaller fleet with like the bigger ships,
Right.
that's still something that is very difficult to do in space when you have a corridor, right? Like,
There's
granted,
only so many places you can
there's
hide.
only so many places you can hide, right?
Yeah.
And if you're going through a spot, then you have to
You're
basically
literally scanning the sides, like,
right.
anything that's going on our flank?
Yep,
Nope,
because
okay,
for
keep
all they
going.
know, there could be all sorts of traps or whatever that have been set in here.
So they're on the alert.
So they're on the alert,
Yeah.
right? So the idea that they're able to hide,
Right.
but not only hide from them, hide from the people coming down the other side, right? Like, that was something that I really appreciated because, yeah, like, hiding from someone where you know where they're going to be moving, okay, yeah, you can plan around that. Their movements will be very predictable, right? But someone from behind,
Nope.
you pick your poison,
Yeah. So I love that this ended up being a very simple strategy that worked really well in that, okay, we'll use the corridors outside edges to basically give our fleets a nice wide berth from Thor's hammer's range there. And then Wallen really has no choice but to retreat. He can't engage directly with one of the fleets and potentially go outside the corridor and take, damage from the environment and stuff.
Sure.
But also doing that still keeps him in Thor's hammer's range.
Right. And
so he can't just suffer 3 shots,
Exactly. And the
Yeah.
other thing that I really liked is the explanation for why Wallen went in Thor's hammer's range in the first place.
Yeah.
It was something where everything that he had done up until, like, I don't think he really made any like big mistakes. It's just that he didn't have all the information and then he ended up losing, right?
Right.
But the whole thing of, yes, we're going to go up to Iserlon to basically just make sure that
We
they
could
don't
potentially take it too.
so that we could potentially take it, and so that they have less maneuverability in how they engage our allies, because if they leave an opening for Iserlon Fortress, then we can come in and take it. Cool.
And
it's
even-
just like no ships have to be lost. It's just a counter pressure because you're introducing a potential, right?
And even if the fight drags on and all of Julian's fleet comes to bear against you, keeping you out of Iserlon, you can somewhat rely potentially on the fleet on the other side to be like, oh, there's literally nothing keeping us from boarding Iserlon. Go, go, go.
Yeah, let's
send
be in a scattered formation and just try and land some people in there.
Yeah, exactly. Send 100 ships.
Mhm.
You don't need much to take
Right.
Iserlon.
Thor's hammer won't be able to, shoot all of you, right? If you're spread
or shoot
out.
small troop transports,
Sure, yeah.
Even the point defense guns, which they've shown specifically to
Mm-hmm.
be a thing that cannot just be around wherever Thor's hammer is. Like, they need to literally go into the fortress's liquid shell.
Mercury thing and all that.
Yeah, exactly. So that Thor's hammer can be like, okay, we're occupying this big circle of the fort,
Right, right. Yep.
So yeah, that was something where I think Wallen really just had the unlucky aspect in that Mercats had the perfect flanking pincer move.
It's something where, like,
There you go.
I feel like the thing that constantly gets the Empire in trouble with regards to Iserlon is that they don't know exactly how many ships they have at their disposal, right?
You mean the enemy has?
That the enemy has. Yeah.
Right.
And as a result of that, when you know they engage on one side, right? It's the
Right.
They're trusting in the competence of the other side to basically be like, all right, we're keeping them distracted, you know, all of that stuff. Oh, turns out that's not actually all of them. Well,
No.
shit, you know,
Yeah.
right? And the bait of, you know, because this is the thing that I just love about it so much. If the one admiral hadn't allowed Thor's hammer to be fired on him, it wouldn't have provided the irresistible bait of, you have a window now to take Iserlon. Right? Like, that's what I love about it so much. It's that Julian is like, we're going to get it to the point where they can't afford to not take this, right?
Yeah.
We're going to open fire, right? Now they've got a window, and we're just going to rely on Mercats being able to slow them down enough so that we can recharge and then fire.
Yeah.
And then at that point, it's over, right?
Yeah. And I loved that there was still this scary moment of, like, Julian being like, we'll hold out. We can do that.
Yeah.
Like,
it'll work.
It'll work.
Right?
Like,
You know?
yeah. And I loved the idea of Wallen having this moment of adjust the formation. It doesn't matter about this flanking maneuver. Yes, it's inconvenient, but still, all together, they have less than half of our ships. So the actual damage they can do to our fleet once we come to bear and start firing on one of their groups, like, that was the part I was scared about, was that he was going to say, all forces turn on the smallest part of their fleet
And devour them.
and just destroy them.
Right.
And I was really scared that Mercats was going to go down so that Wallen could go down, basically.
Sure, yeah.
And that it would be Wallen would get hit with the Thor's hammer, but the Hyperion and Mercats would just be utterly annihilated.
Yeah, and that would have been a devastating loss.
Yeah.
Like,
So really, this worked out not just well for Julian, but like really well. And while he called it fair, which I do think is accurate here, in that Wallen was kind of screwed from the get-go in a lot of ways. The fact that this all played out in such a way to antagonize the lumbering, sleeping giant, basically,
Of Reinhard, yeah.
Reinhard. But then also immediately after that, Reinhard gets the
Right.
body. Nope. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm out.
And
I really want to talk about the themes of this episode
Oh, me too.
because it feels like they're setting up a thing of where, you know, we've celebrated over the course of this show every single victory that one of the sides has had, because the show does a really good job of making us root for both sides here.
Yep.
There's not really any, you know, horrible, awful antagonists that are evil that command large groups outside of the Church of Terra, really.
And even then, it's not fleets. It's just groups of, you know, people on planets and
Right.
stuff.
So when the fleets go to battle, we don't really want either side to lose, really. Like, unless it's like a corrupt, you know, alliance, you know, officer from way in the beginning.
Right. We'll want maybe one of the officers to lose. Right.
Sure.
But, you know, that's
But even then, when, you know, Bittenfeld and you know, Mittermeier and all the boys come out, you know, we're like,
Hell yeah.
let's go. And then we realize, shit, millions of people are dying. And this episode was basically hey, the fighters, you know, the little snub fighters that the Alliance used, they
kicked ass.
They put some notes in the history books for dogfighting and stuff. Okay.
Awesome.
Okay. Then the Imperial fleets, you know, were hit so hard they lost 400,000 soldiers.
And that was the keeping losses to a minimum, you know, with how bad things went.
That was the Julian, please run, please run,
right.
please run.
Uh-huh.
I don't want to drag this out anymore.
Yep.
And this is primarily for political, you know, sway that we can then use to say, hey, treat us seriously, you know?
Yep.
And now, not only did that work, but now he's getting celebrated for doing this, which could lead to more death and violence. And then the idea that the narrator's like, but for some reason, people really like to celebrate the honor of you know, military leaders who exercise this air of nobility, kind of a gentleman's, you know, kind of courtesy. But it's like, but we also celebrate extreme total victory where
hundreds of thousands are being slaughtered.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Right, and it's one of those things where it's like, yes, of course, people will celebrate when people in
their
a position
side wins.
Well, when their side wins, but when people that are in a position to basically go into sanctioned barbarism, right?
Well, you could say that
Do
they
their
were
best.
already doing that.
Well, right,
but more of it is what you're saying? Like,
no, but
more
when,
extreme version?
No, when they in the midst of that, while doing the sanctioned barbarism of warfare and slaughter, right, they also try and hold on to those, more refined ideals, or I guess, right? And it's like, okay, yeah,
but it's kind of hypocritical.
But it's totally hypocritical.
Super hypocritical.
Right? Yeah. And,
So the idea of the people that get to look on the sidelines, I would say, with regards to war and stuff, then are the ones that give the commentary that kind of gets put maybe the most into things like history books and stuff.
Sure.
Turns to things where we like glorify and deify certain military leaders and stuff, where it's like, yes, what an amazing man Yang was. And it's like, yes, I would say of character, Yang was an amazing man. Of tactics and strategy, yes, he was pretty incredible.
And that's definitely something to be celebrated in hopes that maybe it'll happen again. But
the acts he was doing that gave him the most, glory and stuff, were primarily the ways in which he successfully killed millions.
Exactly.
So
the character stuff on the side was the ways that the people would feel comfortable about the fact that they were celebrating the deaths of millions.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't them, and because he's a good dude, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Sure,
but
we
they're
can
not
objectively say that because the other stuff it doesn't matter. Someone would have to do it anyway.
Well, and they aren't praising him though because he's actually a good dude.
No,
they're praising him because he won. Right. And that whole theme of the contradiction and hypocrisy surrounding war that was brought up in this episode and has been brought up in the show up till now makes Reinhard immediately going into a fever not even just once he hears about it, but once he makes the decision to go to war again.
Send the expedition in, and his body literally gives in on him, and the stress of it all basically renders him inoperable from going to war. It's almost as if his own body is rejecting his old ideals of celebrating war and saying, this is kind of hypocritical, Reinhard. You want to start a family. You want to build a new future legacy and all that. And you doing this actively makes it harder for you. So maybe you're going to need to delegate, or at the very least, choose something other than war.
Well, so this is something else that I really really love as a potential parallel. I don't know if how intentional this is necessarily, right? But Reinhardt's fevers and stuff and his health have been increasing in the severity of the negatives, and basically his health has been deteriorating whenever this kind of stuff happens over the course of the show, right? On the one hand, that makes sense from a meta perspective because it's getting later in the show, so escalate that kind of stuff, and whatever that conflict is will come to a head of some kind with Reinhard and all that stuff, and it'll be great to see. But one of the other things that has also been escalating over the course of the show is that Reinhard is getting more and more alone. The people that fight for him, that basically say, we will serve you, are dying, right? And these health issues started when Kirheis died.
Yes.
Right? Where he lost someone
near and dear
very
to him,
close, right?
Practically his soul partner.
Exactly, right? Because of his desire for war, right? He could not have predicted it. Kirheis couldn't have, and Kirheis wouldn't have changed a thing, right? But that is a cost that basically Reinhard ended up making his friend pay. And since then, the butcher's bill, the list of lives that have been lost to pave, Reinhardt's cobblestone road to the castle, has gotten longer and longer. And as it does, his fevers get, worse and worse.
Right, but this is the part I think is really interesting. He's in the castle. So why are you going to war?
Well, because the castle isn't fully furnished out. There's this one ugly spot,
Well, no, it's even lower than that. There's a mosquito. I love that even in his own dialogue, he admits how insignificant it is, and yet he is willing to, in some ways, risk his life for a mosquito.
Yeah.
This is some One Punch Man, like...
Right.
Slaps himself so hard, he sends himself into a fever, basically.
Yeah, that's...
I'm just saying, I think it's very intentional that Mariendorf, in the show meta sense, directly, immediately said, we should send a small diplomatic envoy first.
Right. And
then get rejected of, hey, my Kaiserine has excellent advice. but, this is a mosquito that needs to be stopped from bugging me so that I can sleep peacefully. Then he proceeds to not sleep peacefully because he went to address the mosquito.
Well, and to be fair to Reinhard, his reasoning was really good.
His reasoning is good.
They specifically want to go to war with us. That's what this is. So let's give them what they want.
Right,
but why can't you do both, right? Why can't you send out the diplomatic envoy as well in advance of the fleet, as a, hey, I know that this is what you want and we're very prepared to do this, but at the same time, we think this is a bad idea.
Yeah, how about we leverage the fact that we're sending maybe 20,000 ships to each side of the corridor.
Sure.
And then we say, here's the diplomatic envoy. You have 12 hours to respond or we destroy you.
Yeah, exactly.
And see how and this is I think the other thing that's just very obvious from, watching the show like all the way up until now. You can very easily tell that Reinhard wants to go himself, but there is actually no reason no reason in the world why he needs to go.
And in fact, his body is making it so that he can't go.
Right. So therefore, we know that the flaw in his logic is that for some reason he wants to be there.
Yeah.
Which means that maybe the logic in and of itself is also kind of flawed.
Well, right. Or at the very least, maybe he's not being honest about what the logic is of why he's making these decisions, right? He has an ironclad logic of this decision still needs to be made. We need to be able to go to war because they're wanting to go to war with us. Okay, we need to be able to respond. All right, cool. But you sure there's not some bias hidden under the surface there?
Exactly. That's my point.
You sure there's not something else, you know?
So I'm really excited for Mariendorf, who now has extremely strong political power.
Sure.
Where she's literally been put into this position not just because of her and Reinhard's love for each other, but also because if your Kaiser is not able to rule right now, she needs to be the one to step up and make the decisions. And this is the perfect opportunity for her to be like, yeah, I know. He's sending the expedition. I'm going to have you all go. Go to the ends of each corridor. Don't let a single fleet go in or out.
Yeah, right.
Then I want to...
Do not get anywhere near to that
force hammer. I want to personally curate a number of people. We'll have some military people go in as well. But I specifically want to have, people that are maybe like my father.
Sure.
And a couple other people that are ministers, politicians, all kinds of people not of military rank to go in and speak to them and see if what they really want is for their way of life to be ended abruptly and violently.
Right, because the diplomatic envoy, even if the decision is, no, we still need to fight because you're not willing to basically, we haven't gotten enough clout with you that you'll accept our terms that we need, then at least it's an understanding of, okay, that's what they're after. If we ever get to that point, we can know so that way the fighting can end immediately when it can. Whenever we're ready for that to happen or whatever, if they manage to beat us enough.
Whenever I would play Civ, one of my favorite things about encountering other nations and what have you is that they would very quickly tell when, they're wanting to go to war with you, because they would stop seeing your diplomatic envoys. And you're like, oh, well, shit, I guess we're going to war soon. And and then once you've beaten them enough in war, they start seeing your diplomatic envoys. And they're like, so, yeah, I think peace is good now. And I'm like, no, I don't just want peace. I want this, extra. I want this, and then we'll have peace. And then they're like, fine, okay. It's like, yeah, next time, don't just immediately just... pick a fight. And I think that's the thing that Mariendorf was eventually going to try and maybe convince Reinhard of doing, is that sending a diplomatic envoy doesn't mean that we show weakness. What it means is that we communicate with them what we need from them moving forward here if they want to continue existing. It is not just a threat. It is basically okay, do you really want this? Because if so, this is how we will respond. But if you want something else, these are our terms of how you can get that.
Right. So the way I kind of see it in my mind is it's like a hydraulic press or something like that, right? And it's This is not a. This is a button that we can stop. Like it's only while we're pushing the button.
Right.
And we can stop at any time.
Yep.
But that will continue to slowly crush you.
Nothing will stop it.
Nothing will stop it.
It will only be slowed down the slightest little bit.
Right. But at any point we can stop, right? So it's we will be in good communication so that you know it's not a raging bull going through a china shop, right?
Yeah.
It's not a binary this or that. Once it starts, you can't put the genie back
progress.
in the bottle. Right.
Are you halting progress? Well, then I'm sorry.
Yes, you have freedom, and you have, but you're. And
I love those videos on YouTube of like household items just getting slowly just
destroyed,
flattened. There's no resistance that can actually matter on the small scale things, or like pressurized water. Yeah, like pressurized water
cleaning, like
going through like hard metal and stuff.
Oh,
like it's the coolest thing. It's practically a laser, but you'll see like a cell phone basically getting like sawed by like highly pressurized water or something.
Yeah, it's cool stuff.
That's so cool.
And that's basically what the Empire is here, but letting them know that this is something of you control the button. We will do this if you do this. So, your call, right?
But yeah, here we go. This is where we set things towards, and the Church of Terra is looming in the dark, doing their own thing. So this has to serve their purposes a little bit. In the short term, at least a little bit. But yeah, let's keep some people around Reinhard, specifically given that he is not doing well, because I am very, very worried of him having his fever exacerbated by agents of the Church of Terra.
Sure. Yeah, that too.
Yeah. But y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below. For our Patreon, you can get on early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there, and all this comes with Discord access, so you can chat with us in the community there about this show, about anime in general, and also be sure to check out our Twitch channel.
We stream every weekday. The info's in the description.
Yes, if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time.